Welcome everybody to the Masterclass, Homeopathy and the Highly Sensitive Child. I'm Nicole. For those that don't know me, I'm a homeopath. I'm also a functional medicine practitioner, and my health platform is called the Wellness Place International. I'm also an author and I'm a mother, but most importantly for this conversation and this masterclass, I'm a highly sensitive person. And when I was 18, I took the intuitive leap of a highly sensitive person, and I went to study homeopathy. I didn't know anything about homeopathy, and I knew even less about highly sensitive people, except that I knew I was sensitive, but not in a good way. So luckily, I found my community with other highly sensitive people, which were my fellow homeopathic students. And I also found support in getting homeopathic treatment, homeopathic remedies, constitutional care over the years to manage the myriad of health complaints that I had. Because highly sensitive people really do struggle with stimulation of the modern life and modern world. So here I am, 30 years later, after I completed my studies, and I've been now in practice for 25 years. So this is quite a milestone for me, 2025. It's also World Homeopathy Week. So on the 10th of April, every year we celebrate the birthday anniversary of the founder of homeopathy, Samuel Hahnemann. And this year, the anniversary is his 270th birthday anniversary. So it's quite a big milestone for homeopathy as well. So I'm going to briefly speak about the origins of homeopathy and then speak to high sensitivity in both children and adults. And I know that homeopathy is a big topic and quite misunderstood. So I'm probably not going to do justice to it in this brief masterclass. And so you can always reach out to me for further resources if you need more. So Samuel Hahnemann was founded by, homeopathy was founded by Samuel Hahnemann. He was born in 1755 and he died in 1843. He was a physician, a chemist, a linguist, a historian of medicine, and he was a scientific revolutionary, or maybe some people would have called him a heretic. He was very disillusioned by the current practices in medicine at the time, and so he stopped practicing medicine and he started to translate medical text instead. He put his linguistic abilities to task. And in the translations, he came across a number of findings by other physicians, which led him to the principle, or discovering the principle of like cures like, which in Latin means like suffering. So he did many experiments with plants, medicines, and other substances, metals, minerals, and he experimented with diluting them, and these experiments were called provings. So what he discovered was much more in line with what we now call modern post-quantum physics or nanoparticle theory than the Newtonian physics of his day. And so this is probably still the biggest obstacle to many people embracing and understanding homeopathy, is the modern mindset. It's a barrier to understanding homeopathy because it is based on, only what is visible can be validated, and what is invisible and intangible therefore doesn't exist. And so that is the paradigm conflict that we find ourselves in even now. I did a previous webinar in 2021 on this exact topic. So if it interests you, then I can share the webinar link to my Health or Heresy webinar. So a quick Homeopathy 101. Is it placebo? So that's probably the biggest misunderstanding about homeopathy. And placebo, no, it is not placebo because it works on animals, on babies, and even in agriculture, on plants. So homeopathy is not placebo. It's a system of remedies made from plants, animals, and minerals, and even some imponderable substances. It's prescribed on the basis of similarity, and it acts on the body by stimulating the body's own innate healing ability. So these remedies are prepared by dilution and succussion, which is vigorous shaking. They are dilutions that range from within Avogadro's number to way beyond it, and to the point that no measurable original substance is present. And so that is where the misunderstandings come in with homeopathy is, how does it then work if there is no measurable substance present? And so it doesn't work chemically, it works energetically. And there have been a lot of more recent studies and research studies that have pointed to the idea that there is a memory of that substance that is held in the solute, whether it's water or alcohol. And so, like I said, this is a brief Homeopathy 101, and I have been into this in a lot more detail in the Health and Heresy webinar, so you can always check that out if you want to know more. So when is homeopathy best used? There are certain situations that are really well suited to getting a good result. And so to me, there are two ways to use homeopathy. And the one is to work with a professional. And professionals are trained to deal with both acute and chronic conditions. And they're also trained to help with disease prevention, or what we call prophylaxis. And the other way to use homeopathy is more what I call do-it-yourself. And because homeopathy, when you have the right training and you just sort of are open to learning a few remedies, for instance, then it can be an amazing self-care tool for your family at home. And yes, also in first aid situations and when traveling, it can also be hugely beneficial. So homeopathy is particularly well suited to the highly sensitive person and the highly sensitive child because it gives validation to the label, the psychosomatic label. So many sensitive people get this label of you have this complaint and no one knows what it is, and so it must be stress related or it must be psychosomatic. But that label is experienced as a bit of a put down for the highly sensitive person, and homeopathy really validates that this is real. In the highly sensitive person and child, homeopathy helps with self-regulation and better adapting to the environment. Sometimes I must add here at this point that it's not possible to adapt to certain environments for certain people, and that is an obstacle which even homeopathy can't help with. But in most cases, where the highly sensitive person or child is given the right care and the right support, homeopathy helps them to self-regulate and adapt better. It helps to process strong emotions, in some cases even better than therapy. And because it is not chemical, you don't get chemical side effects because it is a dilution. It essentially, a lot of hypersensitive, highly sensitive people and children are sensitive to chemical medicine as well. So that is why using homeopathy is also a good match. So the term highly sensitive people comes from a psychologist, a research psychologist called Elaine Aron, and she started doing research into this direction in 1991. So highly sensitives are individuals with a genetic characteristic that makes them deeply attuned to stimulus in the environment and also to their relationships. And so that is the definition that I'm speaking from. What is it? It is this genetic trait. It's something that we're born with. It's something that we can't change. Essentially, it is a brain that is more reactive. And the trait is, in scientific terms, called sensory processing sensitivity, or SPS. So it's a temperament and you can't change it. And it's not a disorder. It's not a mental illness. It's not neuroticism, and it's not introversion. It's actually a survival trait. So SPS is present in over 100 species, including fruit flies, fish, and primates. And it's, from the research, present in 15 to 20% of these populations. So think about the human, let's say, that thinks before they act, that is maybe slow to warm up and is uptight rather than laid back. This cautionary behavior has been shown to be provide evolutionary advantages for the whole group. And so that is where sensitivity needs to be viewed as a strength and not a weakness. The HBS acronym that just come out of the research is DOES. So this is essentially what highly sensitive people, including children, these are the characteristics. D stands for depth of processing. They process information and stimuli very, very deeply. And so they can, because the brain is reactive and the processing is on a deep level, they need time to recover, and they also can become easily overstimulated or over-aroused. And that is what the O stands for. So the main problem with highly sensitive people and children is often anxiety related or related to overstimulation. They're also incredibly empathic and emotionally reactive. They are also sensitive to subtle stimuli. So these are the characteristics of what I mean when I talk about a highly sensitive person or child. So briefly, are you highly sensitive? You're here because maybe you have a highly sensitive child, or you suspect might have be highly sensitive, but perhaps you are a highly sensitive person yourself. So there are some online questionnaires that you can do. And so, there's no time, to go through that in the session, but those can be easily searched for online if you want to do this further. But yeah, so just briefly, are you easily overwhelmed by things like bright lights, strong smells, coarse fabrics, sirens, stimulation in your vicinity? Do you like deep conversations? Do you get easily rattled when you have a lot to do in a short amount of time? Do other people tell you that you're good at understanding what they are thinking and feeling? Do you tend to reflect on things deeply? Do you make a point of avoiding violent movies and TV shows? Do you notice or enjoy delicate or fine sense, taste, sounds, or works of art? Do you have a rich and complex inner life? Were you a child? When you were a child, did your parents or teachers see you as sensitive or shy? And then there's a specific questionnaire for children. So this is from Elaine Aron's website. And the questions are a little bit different. So, does your child startle easily? Does your child complain of scratchy clothing, seams in socks, or labels against his or her skin? Doesn't usually enjoy big surprises. Learns better from gentle correction rather than strong punishment. Seems to read my mind. Uses big words for his or her age. Notice the slightest unusual odor. Has a clever sense of humor. Is hard to get to sleep after an exciting day. Doesn't do well with big changes. Wants to change clothes if wet or sandy. Asks lots of questions. Is a perfectionist. Notices the distress of others. Prefers to play quietly. Asks deep, thought-provoking questions. Is very sensitive to pain. Is bothered by noisy places. Notices subtleties, like something's been moved or a change in a person's appearance. Considers if it is safe before climbing high. Performs best when strangers aren't present, and feels things deeply. So they say if you answer more than 13 of these questions being true, then your child is probably highly sensitive. So there's also some popular books and a movie on the topic, and these are quite easily to source. As you can see, this concept has been around since the 90s, and it has really grown in popularity and awareness. And so there's now some more recent research done by Elaine Aron and her husband, who's also a research psychologist, and some others. And they've taken the concept of the highly sensitive person and they've broadened it. So the previous research identified two groups, the highly sensitive group and the less sensitive group. Now we know that there is a sensitivity continuum. And so you may well have heard of, in sticking with the flower metaphor, which people that have followed me in my other work know how much I love plants and flowers. So your highly sensitive person or child is the orchid. Your less sensitive is the dandelion, and your medium sensitive is the tulip. And so this reflects inborn environmental sensitivity and reactivity, and it reflects a continuum and three different types as opposed to the original two types. And you can find this research in Nature. It was from 2018. It's important in this context to be aware that there can be parent-child differences, and that is where some of the challenges can arise. So one has to, as a parent, acknowledge the challenges when different temperaments in one family interact, and one has to check to see if your expectations are realistic and child appropriate. And so, on a more personal note, in my family, my husband calls himself a dandelion. I would say I'm an orchid. My daughter, I think, is an orchid, and my son is a tulip. And my husband has observed that my daughter and I feed each other's anxieties. And so, the family dynamic needs all levels of sensitivity to function well, just as the group needs the skills and the strengths that the highly sensitive um, person or child brings. So the dandelions, these are people that have low sensitivity. They are around 29% of the population, according to the study in Nature that I mentioned. And dandelions are hardy, and they can grow virtually anywhere. The tulip falls somewhere in between the two extremes of sensitivity. They have medium sensitivity, and they are about 40% of the population. And the orchid is a highly sensitive flower that needs very particular environments to thrive. So this is the high sensitivity group, and it's around 30% of the population. And I did say before that this sensitivity continuum is speaks of temperament and not of pathology. But some research has come out to show that highly sensitive personalities do suffer from affective disorder, such as depression and anxiety at higher rates. And there is an association between highly sensitive people and mental health challenges. So this is, something to bear in mind is that the highly sensitive personality um, may not be able to endure the same kind of stress and trauma and may need extra and more nuanced care. A highly sensitive person and child often struggles with the stimulation from our modern world. And this includes screens, it includes chemical medicine, includes toxicity from the environment, it includes our sleep-wake cycles that may be disturbed by artificial light. It includes junk food, and it's these types of stimuli that keep the highly sensitive person or child trapped in a cycle of overstimulation. In 2022, I did a blog post which I called "The Canary in a Modern Coal Mine: When Weakness is Strength." And this is my most read blog post with almost 1,000 views. And I think it just speaks to the relevance of this topic, of the fact that the canary in a coal mine is a metaphor for the highly sensitive person or child living in a modern world. And the canary shows us when something is wrong for the whole group. So the apparent sensitivity, which for some people seems like a weakness, it can be a strength. And I recommend, if people are interested, to have a look at that blog as well. This is another graphic from that blog about the importance of creating a supportive environment for our highly sensitive people and children. And this is how we create a happy place for the human canary or the human highly sensitive person or child. I'll get more into that in future slides, but you can see the importance of a like-minded and in part highly sensitive community. You can see the need for enough rest, movement, exercise, time in nature, healthy food, sunshine. All those things create a very, very supportive environment in which the canary can actually thrive, or the highly sensitive child or person can really thrive to a point that it is a valued and productive member of society. So, what can you do as a parent of a highly sensitive child? I think the most important thing is to break the stigma. Understand and embrace the inherent strength in sensitivity. Although this highly sensitive trait seems to be a lot more common in women and females from the research, I do think that it is especially important to mention that enough males or men or boys have this trait. And unfortunately, I think the stigma is a lot stronger. It's not cool to be a sensitive boy or man. And so we have to work against that stigma in society. And see the sensitivity as a kind of superpower. Okay, we also need to avoid seeing the sensitivity as a defect. We need to avoid pathologizing and we need to help to create an environment that supports that sensitivity. And this one does by adding appropriate therapies and by fostering positive and constructive relationships. So this is where, when you're talking about adding therapies that are supportive, most parents will hit another snag because um, we live in a culture of polarized healthcare, and the challenge is to integrate the best of both conventional and homeopathic medicine. So the challenge is to firstly have the awareness that you have this high sensitivity in your environment, in your home, either in yourself or children, and then to look for the right supportive therapies because highly sensitives need a lot of self care, and it may not necessarily come from the conventional channels. And so you need to look outside of the conventional channels and think especially of psychotherapy and homeopathy as important supportive therapies. And this would be not a problem if we had this type of paradigm of healthcare. And so this is what I call a new paradigm of healthcare, and it shows how um, on the left, when you present with a complaint, ideally we should start with the least invasive, most natural therapy, and that would be looking at one's environment and modifying our environment, then looking at nutrition and lifestyle, then looking at herbs and supplements, and then adding the energy medicines in which homeopathy falls. And then as pathology and health increases and health declines, add more um, um, pharmaceutical interventions and surgical interventions, etc., etc. And this paradigm really suits the highly sensitive person, the highly sensitive child, because they are so affected by their environment, both positively and negatively. So as a parent, that would be your challenge, is to embrace this new paradigm in health, which is there for the taking, but really needs to be developed and needs a lot more support. Then how can you use homeopathy? So working with a homeopath for constitutional care is what I call the gold standard. That is one way to support your highly sensitive child. Another way is to learn how to use DIY homeopathy in your home. And other ways are to use other canary care modalities like Bach flower remedies and tissue salts, which are also energetic and similar to homeopathy, but strictly speaking, not homeopathic. So this is a good place to start, I believe. And, what does constitutional care look like? So it involves working one-on-one with a homeopath. Health and Heresy webinar, I actually talk you through a case, two cases, in fact, which really explains constitutional care in real time. And so that if you really want to know more, that's also available there. And so, yes, constitutional care includes supporting the temperament, the personality, and all physical, mental, and emotional symptoms, the whole complex of, of symptoms. And like I said before, it helps the highly sensitive adapt, if possible, more appropriately, and it supports their unique personal growth. So using homeopathy in your home, an example would be, because highly sensitives tend to be sensitive to pain, I would say treat all injuries with arnica. Everybody, not even people that know homeopathy, have heard of arnica. And so that would be a very simple yet effective start. Arnica is also a good shock remedy. So, the highly sensitive nervous system goes easily into shock and overwhelm. And so, whether it's a bump or a graze or falling on their head, or even if it's post-surgical, um, any kind of injury would be, you could really support your highly sensitive by using arnica and having it as a first aid remedy in your bathroom cabinet. And then when you learn more about homeopathy, you could see that there are lots of other remedies that could be useful as well. And so one can consider remedies like aconite for fright, or calendula when the injury is a wound, or even hypericum when the injury involves nerves, like crushed fingers and dental surgery and things like that, where there's a damage to the nerves. And this is just an excerpt of the information on arnica that is present in my first aid homeopathy book. So that's just one very, very simple and I think relatable example where you can do something quite tangible to support your highly sensitive child's nervous system. I have a testimonial from, in fact, it was not long ago, but this year, my client said this. We met in 2003 at an antenatal class and became one of your patients soon after. Your wisdom and homeopathic kit changed the trajectory of our families and many, many others' health journey. Thank you. I'm forever grateful to you, Nicole. And so this is notable because, I haven't had contact with her for more than a decade since I left South Africa. And she's been using the kit and the information all these years. And it, in fact, she's passed on the care to the people that she now works with in her line of work. So I thought this was an amazing validation of the power of using a homeopathic first aid kit and using homeopathy at home in first aid situations. This is how my little book works, and it is available it's an ebook and it's available to download via my website. So there are some more DIY canary care tips for highly sensitive children that I want to just mention here. Those are the use of your Bach flower remedies and the tissue or cell salts. They are probably, in a way, more accessible and easier to use. They can also be used very safely, even on a daily basis. So these are something that one can also have as your canary care toolkit at home. An example would be for perhaps social anxiety for children that are have fear going to school, or maybe older children that need to write tests and exams. And many of my clients use a combination of the Bach Rescue Remedy and Califos tissue salt. And these are quite easy to come by, ordering through the major sort of health pharmacies and health shops. And they make a huge impact. It's something which even some of the families that I've supported, the children as they grow up, they, into their teens and beyond, they have learnt to carry with them Bach a rescue remedy and Califos tissue salts, and then they self-medicate. So, the Bach rescue remedies are flower essences, and they're in a low dilution, and so are the tissue salts. They are minerals also in a low dilution, and not strictly speaking homeopathic, but they are in a similar ballpark, which is why I mention them here today. So homeopathy offers something for all types. It doesn't matter whether you're a dandelion, a tulip, or an orchid, or even a canary. The correct homeopathic remedy meets you where you're at in your health. And yeah, in a harsh modern world, the sensitivity of the highly sensitive person is met gently and with validation by the subtle and energetic nature of a homeopathic remedy. So I hope this gives you some background to how you can use homeopathy with your highly sensitive child. This is me. Please reach out to me if you have any further questions or would like to consult. Thank you for your attention, and let's take this further if you like. So I wish you well, and enjoy the rest of your day.